Are you familiar with FBI Special Agents Kyle Seraphin?
I'm familiar with the name.
Is that yes?
I'm familiar with the name. Familiar with the name. Familiar with the name.
Let's bring in Kyle Seraphin. He's the FBI whistleblower who helped expose government censorship of our First Amendment rights.
Now, we only have this memo because a recently suspended FBI agent called Kyle Seraphin brought it to the public. And we're grateful that he did. Kyle, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
He's the host of something that strangely is called the Kyle Seraphin Show.
Kyle Seraphin, I can't thank you enough for speaking out. I knew you guys were out there, and I knew it was just a matter of time, but you got a lot of guts putting your face and your name to this. You're doing a service on behalf of the American people, and from the bottom of my cracked and broken heart sometimes, thank you very much.
Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Well, hello, my friends. Welcome to the Kyle Seraphin Show. It is Wednesday. It is January the 29th. And if you are joining us for the first time, welcome to the program. If you're hearing a new intro because you're listening on the audio and thinking, what the heck was that? Here's the deal. We just moved all of our hosting from one group that seemed like they were probably squashing us and giving us bad numbers, and we moved it over to Spotify. So all of our episodes are going to be hosted over on Spotify. You'll be able to find them in the normal places, but what you won't find is that shorter intro you're probably used to where we cut out a good chunk of it. So if you got an extra minute to skip through in the beginning, I will not be upset with you at all. Thanks so much for joining us, and I appreciate your patience as we kind of figure this thing out. I think it's going to be better for distribution. That's the plan. And if you saw a bunch of shenanigans yesterday, and I know a lot of you reached out to me and I really do appreciate it. You're like, hey man, where the hell's the podcast? I had the same question for 3.5 hours with the folks over at Spotify, but I think we got it straightened out. You can also find the video over at Spotify. Might as well throw this up here for now. If you guys are looking for the nonstop every day, it's always on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. It's over on YouTube at Kyle Seraphin. You can find us on X at Kyle Seraphin as well. Locals, KyleSeraphin.com. All easy ways to find it live. And now the replay on Spotify, on Apple, on iHeartRadio, and so on will be hosted with the video over on Spotify as well. So if you guys are into it, that's what we're all about. Let's get, let me tell you what we're going to do. We're going to talk about an FBI whistleblower. Oh, I'm going to put air quotes on it because that's what they like to do over at CBS when they don't talk about us being me, Garrett O'Boyle, Steve Friend, Marcus Allen, George Hill. You know, the people that actually had violations of rule, policy, or law, or gross misuse of the American public's funds, or some sort of nasty safety issue. You know, the things that are actually statutorily defined to be whistleblowers. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about somebody who violated a protocol. So that's fun. I'm going to debunk the FBI whistleblower story coming out of the hostage recovery cell. We're going to talk about the fork. Today's episode is 100% dedicated to all the dads out there who love to use puns. Because why the fork not? Look, it's a Forkin' Wednesday, and we're going to be talking about the fork in the road. That is to say, opm.gov/fork, F-O-R-K. Yep, we're going to be saying it a lot. Because Donald Trump threw them the fork. When I was in the military, we used to call it the wrench. I don't know why. When you had a choice between two things. One might be painful now, the other might be painful later. This is the fork. So there you go. We got that coming down the line. What else do I got on the docket here? Transgender people getting kicked out of the military. I've got a transgender person video coming from CNN. Probably not the wisest thing if you are a female CNN host to bring on a transgender person who looks just like you, stirring more questions about whether or not you're transgender. I got Tom Holman owning the libs. Very fun, including the Brits, who we beat in multiple wars and probably should stay on their side of the pond and worry about their migrants, who seem to be very Muslim and very rapey. Anyway, what else? We got a couple other things on there. Just look, this is going to be a lot of fun. So stick around. Let's be thankful to our sponsors. I am thankful. The reason that these people agree to support our program is because of you, the audience. They know that you guys are great and they want to sell their products to you. I only take on sponsors that I'm going to spend my own money on. And Patriot Coolers is one of them. And not only did I spend my own money on them, I actually spent my own money before I was ever part of this world. I never thought I would need a sponsor. What I thought I needed was a cup that would keep my beverage hot or cold. And this is a new one. It matches the wood grain behind me. But it's the same style that I used to hold on to when I was an FBI agent, sitting in a car, looking through binoculars and trying to watch bad guys whether they be white supremacists that were kind of fake, whether they be real terrorists, which was a thing. We actually did have a few of them out there in the world, and whether or not it was one of those gang members that we ended up arresting and bringing in for, all kinds of awful things like trafficking that Tom Holman's going after right now. You can find your own Patriot Cooler at patriotcoolers.com. The promo code KYLE saves you 10%, so you might as well use it. It also throws a little bit back our way. It lets them know that you are using our promo code, that you got the information from the Kyle Seraphin Show. And if you want the Kyle Seraphin Show /Suspendables collection, it's in the show description. It's always there. You guys know how to find it. Are you ready? Let's do this. I'm amped. All right, let's forkin' go. This is coming from the folks over at NBC. I actually held on to this for a couple of days. It was a story written at the beginning of the week. Why does Donald Trump 2.0 feel so different already? The questions rolling in. What did we miss, they said. How did we not understand it? This is a hilarious article, by the way, because you'd think that by the title, you'd be like, oh, okay, well, they must get it. They must understand what's going on here. They must. They do not. This is Hayes Brown, an opinion writer over at MSNBC, said it's been 1 week since Donald Trump was sworn in for the second time. We're obviously in week number 2 right now. The past 7 days have been at best disorienting. Oh dear. The new administration has jackknifed the country to the right so far and so fast that the centrifugal force feels crushing. It's so fun to watch. I don't know why I think it's so funny, but it's truly funny. He's pardoned all the J6ers who rioted and assaulted police officers at the Capitol. Look, it was never about the J6ers. Honest to God, I got to tell you that this is my take on it. It's not about the J6ers. Even if you were upset about it, what you should have been upset about was the fact that our federal government decided to break all of its rules, all of its protocols, I dare say, which will come up later. All right? They said, fork it. We're just going to go after people because we didn't like them politically. Donald Trump was one of those victims. You'd be foolish to think that he wasn't going to do something about it. You'd be absolutely out of your damn minds. So how do they not see this coming? In his first salvo, he's launched a quest to end birthright citizenship, which is guaranteed under the 14th Amendment. We'll see. Maybe. I don't think it was meant the way that we think it is, because we didn't used to have that federal safety net that exists today. Plenty of libs crying over on the TikTok and other social medias about that. He's rushed to call off immigration options. Wait, what? Are we cutting off immigration options? Have you guys seen a change in law? Because I didn't, and I watch this stuff for a living. There's been no change in law. What there is an enforcement policy that says if you did something illegal, then you can't stay here. That seems not even debatable. That doesn't even seem like something any normal person would be concerned about. But he cut off those illegal immigration options is what they really meant to say. Anyway, it just goes on and on about how they're very upset. The Heritage Project 2025, the Heritage Foundation Project 2025 is being laid bare. His willingness to discard the Constitution. Yeah, welcome to the rules we talked about yesterday. They really, really want Republicans to stay within the lines. They want a Donald Trump presidency to play by the rules that they've decided, and they are less interested in playing by them themselves. This is a taste of your own medicine. This is what happens if you destroy all the norms. You get to experience what happens on the other foot. It's like, hey, fork around. Find out. I don't know any other way to say it. They've decided to eliminate transgender people from the military. You know, people that have that mental illness where they wake up in the morning every day with a penis between their legs and think that they're a woman. That's a really weird thing to do. That's not a thing that I don't want you in charge of a fighter jet if that's what's going on. I don't need you driving a tank. I don't even want to give you a weapon system. I think that there's probably some pretty good arguments against it. You know, like your mental acuity is not all there. You see things that are not real. So maybe you shouldn't be armed and serving on behalf of our country. By the way, we kick people out of military service, or we do not allow them into military service for the dumbest reasons you can imagine. Like your eyesight isn't good enough, even if you have glasses. Your uncorrected vision is too poor, so you can't be part of our military. Okay? You can't do a duck walk. You can't squat down, and your range of mobility is not good enough. They don't let people in for feet that are too flat. I'm sure there's a great reason why. Even with orthotics today, you can't do it. There's all kinds of disqualifiers. Go to a MEPS If you don't understand this, any lefty that you want to refer to it, send them to the military entrance processing station. Send them in, I think that's what MEPS stands for. Send them into a MEPS, like I've gone through, like many of you have gone through. Send them there and let them watch people get disqualified. And the backflips you have to go through sometimes. I had bad eyes for my whole life. Basically, from the time I was probably, like 8 or 9 years old, I was wearing glasses. I know I had thick glasses by the time I was in 5th grade. So do the math on whatever that looks like. But I had them before then. I probably couldn't see before them either. I couldn't see. When I went to go enlist at 27 as a physical stud, let's just call it that. Like, I went through 2 different special operations selections and I had 0 problems getting through them physically. I crushed it. I couldn't get picked up without a waiver. I had to actually get the Surgeon General of the Air Force to sign off on a waiver for my eyes because my vision was like 20/400. I had to squint my way into something, and I had a special eye doctor come through, and she was like, we may have to like finagle this a little bit. We ended up just like squinting and guessing my way through the chart to be able to get underneath the limits. That was going to be a hard no for me. Then I got eye surgery, and I see perfectly right now. I see probably better than most of you do with glasses. I got better corrected lenses, with my own eyes from the Air Force, by the way. The Air Force paid for my surgery to do this. I had to go through all these hoops. And I was willing. I was 27. I was, I was capable. I didn't have a problem like looking down between my legs and figuring out what was going on down there like some of these people do. The thing that really bothers these folks, and this is what hones in on it. I'm going to bring this back up again, this 2.0. The thing that blows their mind, including this, the author of this piece, is apparently about religion. And it always was, wasn't it? We say that on this program. If you guys are new to the program, one of the arguments that I continue to make, having been a federal employee, having been a lot of time in the private sector, and having spent my time in leftist areas. Look, I lived outside of Washington, D.C. I grew up in the Bay Area for a little while. I actually lived in Dallas, which is kind of lefty-ish. It didn't used to be as much. I spent time in Los Angeles and San Diego as an adult. One of the crazy things you see is that true leftists, and I'm not talking about liberals that disagree with us on policy but understand the values. I'm talking about leftists, like hard left. They think that Joe Biden, was sent here by God to do the work because they don't really believe in a God. They believe in the government. That's the point. Their religion is that is secular. They despise the idea of a God existing above man. It's a lack of humility, and it's actually honed in on in this piece, which is deep, deep, deep below the fold. I'm going to read it to you. The depth of the shift hit hardest for me in a quote from the White House press secretary. Carolyn Leavitt said about Trump's order on gender, an executive order which will affect trans and non-binary American passports, quote, they can still apply to renew their passports. They just have to use their God-given sex, which was decided at birth. It was Leavitt's use of the God-given sex that threw me. They're telling you here, this is the quiet part out loud. Here was the chief spokesperson for the White House padding officially sanctioned bigotry with a religious justification. More concerned was the callousness. I was more concerning was that it was the callousness with which she tossed it off. God-given sex is a thing that triggers leftists. Why would that be? Because they don't believe in a God and they don't believe that there is such a thing. Isn't it interesting that they elected a so-called Catholic president, even though we know he wasn't, in Joe Biden? Nancy Pelosi claims to be a devout Catholic. None of these things are true. These are facades. These are demonic representations of things that are inaccurate. They are lies in order to get people to kind of go along with it. They despise the idea of a real God out there. And it's like it's coming forward in the writing. And so when you go after the God of government, which is what Donald Trump is doing, everything kind of feels a little different. They don't know how to handle it. I've got a little piece here just to remind us here, right? This is a very different Donald Trump, and they don't know what to do with a different Donald Trump. It's hitting differently because he's actually doing the things that we hoped he would do in 2017.
This is a very different Donald Trump. He's leading a very different administration, the way he's attacking things, and the American public is very much more in line with him than they were at any point.
That's the key. The American public is in line with him. That's why he was elected, because they went like, hey, man, you guys are off the flippin' rails. What the fork are you doing? You can't do it. So here you have it. This one's coming from CNN. This is how we led the day off. Why Donald Trump's funding freeze is deepening fears that he seeks unlimited power. Stephen Collinson, the analyst slash hyperbole writer over at CNN, talking about the deepening fear of unlimited power for Donald Trump. Oh my God. And they called him a strong man, which, you know, that's just like a soft way of saying dictator. They're triggering their base. This is why CNN actually is slowly losing the thread and why ABC is edging them out. The other thing is CNN's starting to put everything behind a paywall. Can you imagine paying for this dog crap? I mean, what the fork are they even doing over there? All right. It says, it was the day that Donald Trump's new strongman presidency crashed into reality, his latest attempt to wield vast and unquestionable executive authority, this time halting temporary federal aid. It sparked nationwide confusion. And so, as programs like Meals on Wheels and low-income housing suddenly were in limbo. They never were. It's made up. This is just a fabrication. But it didn't stop any of the lefties from running out there to their favorite news outlets. We'll put news in air quotes too. They're kind of like the whistleblower that's out there complaining about Kash Patel. None of this stuff is real. So here, let's do a couple little montage. Actually, let me start with a thing that we did last show. We talked about Scott Jennings sitting there on CNN making arguments that they don't understand what the executive branch is. They think that the government, they being the leftists, including all the talking faces, they think that the government exists outside of a branch of government. That's actually true. You can see them make the argument, and he just debunks it. There are 3 branches of government in the United States federal system, are there not? They're defined by the Constitution, which is nominally the thing that the leftists actually swear allegiance to. Okay? Article 1. It defines the Congress. That's the legislature. There are 2 houses. You guys know this. Senate, House of Representatives. They have certain responsibilities. They're supposed to write laws that handle all kinds of things. And what they are allowed to write laws about is actually codified in the Constitution. It is broadly interpreted so that we have laws that handle things that it ought not to, mostly through the Interstate Commerce Clause. That's usually the way the government weasels its way in, so that if anything comes in or out of a state, if it doesn't remain, if it's not created wholly within an individual state, the federal government gets its greasy little paws in there. And then in 1913, which Donald Trump has been talking about, we had a federal income tax, which means they can reach into your pockets from Washington, D.C. That's something that's been going on. We should try to fix that. But that's the legislature. Article 2 are the powers of the presidency. It is narrowly defined and specifically defined, but it includes a pretty broad swath of handling what are known as executive functions. And the executive functions are what the government is. They are the functions that are carried out by the legislature. The legislature defines what is to be done. The executive does that thing. The Commerce Department, the Department of the Interior, the stupid Department of the Education, right? Like, I just said it like the lady from the Iraq. Remember this when she was like sitting out there and she was doing the beauty pageant, such as the Iraq. Like all these different government departments, the DOJ and so on, the DOD, Defense, Justice, Commerce, all these secretarial positions, the cabinet, the fact that we're even having a debate about the cabinet, which are the close advisors of the president, which have to be confirmed by the Senate. It's kind of silly. Because the executive function, regardless of whether or not Donald Trump picks somebody he likes, they all fall to the executive, and the chief executive officer of the executive is the president. It's defined by statute. It's defined by our founding document. And lastly is the judiciary, which has actually written itself into a stronger role than it originally was designed. There's only one court that's listed in the entire Constitution. It's the Supreme Court. It's my argument that Donald Trump should wait until the Supreme Court comes and talks to him about anything. There's just no reason. I'm going to fix the audio levers. They've been bothering me. There's just no reason for anybody in the presidency to listen to what some lower judge says in a district somewhere or in the appeal circuit. It's like, well, then thank you for your opinion. I'll wait till it gets to the only court defined in the Constitution, because my office is defined by the Constitution, and I only listen to other constitutionally defined officers of the United States, and that's the Supreme Court. What if he did that? That would be fine. The judiciary's job is to play referee between what the legislature wants, what the citizens are expecting. The tie is supposed to go to the citizen, by the way. The deferred position should go to the citizen. That's what the Bill of Rights is about. I mean, these people swear allegiance to a constitution that they don't seem to understand. The only reason we have a constitution was a compromise between the anti-federalists, the people that said a federal government is a real problem. Again, we're doing history lessons here, but why not? This is the stuff that you need to ingest when you go out there and talk to liberals who generally should understand this, and leftists who think that the government is actually a god on earth sent to give us the good things. And clearly it is not. All of our founding fathers, whether they were deists or whether they were Christians, they understood that there was a divine entity bigger and more powerful than themselves, and they regularly talked about it, the God of nature. Pretty straightforward stuff. This is not complicated. And again, those first 10 amendments, the ones we forget, are 9 and 10, which both say that we didn't list all the rights that you have. And by the way, if we didn't list something, it belongs to the people and to the states and not to the federal government. The federal government doesn't have the right to grant you anything. It exists merely to serve the people. As my buddy Phil likes to say, it's a very libertarian position. The federal government's job is to protect the American people from force and fraud. So what do you do when it doesn't? Again, we're going to touch back on that base that we touched on yesterday. I played this clip. I'm going to play you a follow-on clip because they don't even understand. In sort of the line of Donald Trump 2.0 feels different. It feels different to them because he's actually acknowledging that, okay, fine, you don't want to play by the rules. Neither do I. I saw what you did. It's the movie that I grew up with. I saw what you did last summer, right? What was that all about? I watched your misdeeds, and now you are going to pay for them. This happened under Biden. Watch the complete lack of awareness that these people are living under. Okay, part one. Here we go. Scott Jennings' clip from yesterday.
Department of Justice does not work for the president.
Yes,
the Department of Justice works for the American people.
No, it works for the executive branch. It's in the Constitution. It exists in the executive branch.
The lawyers of the Justice Department work for the American people.
You're acting like it's an independent branch of government. It's in the executive branch run by the president.
I mean, yes, but the lawyers of the Justice Department work for the American people, not for the president of the United States, not the person in the office.
So you don't think anyone in the executive branch is bound to the head of the executive branch?
No. Here's the difference. Here's the difference.
There's no way to argue this position. It's absurd. It's retarded. We can say that now. I think there was an executive order that said we can say gay and retarded again. At least that's what my social media feed tells me that Donald Trump signed. No, listen, you cannot argue against this. The lawyers and the attorneys at the DOJ exist to serve the American people. In theory, yes, but via the executive branch. They don't know what they're talking about. And the best part is we saw what they did with the executive branch in the last 4 years. I saw it. Many of you saw it. They came and tried to ram a shot down your throat and took your livelihood away from it. Didn't they? We're seeing service members being reinstated for that. And by the way, I think that they should consider it prayerfully. But how do you deal with betrayal? I keep getting this question from folks on social media all the time. Oh, Seraphin, would you go back? Go back to what? I never left. In fact, one of the letters that I wrote to the FBI, the senior directors over at HR, I said, I'm not changing, and I haven't changed. I signed up ready to do the thing that I signed up to do, and I have not altered my position. You've changed the terms of my employment, and many of you experienced that in your own jobs. The terms of your employment changed, but you did not. Your founding principles, your understanding of what is and is not allowed did not go anywhere. And if that's the case, the government left you. Your job left you. The military left you. And it was really, really clear. They don't even know they did that. They actually have accepted that the orthodoxy is that the government is by default correct. Why would they think that? They think it because it is a god to them. Listen to this woman. I don't know what her name is. She looks like a diversity hire. Let's be real. She is a black woman with dreads who speaks less articulately than the other people on the panel. Why else is she there on CNN? Except to say these dumb things and get slapped around by someone who is way smarter than her. 18 seconds of Scott Jennings straight up owning this woman. She doesn't even know what happened in the last 4 years in this country and why so many of the American people, again, it's a different Donald Trump because the American people are behind it. CNN stand-up guys, effeminate though they may be, actually understand this. This lady doesn't get it. She seems like a pretty dim bulb.
Everything, by your logic, if you apply it to the last administration, which I don't think is the case, then if Joe Biden wanted to go after Donald Trump because he wanted to go, the Attorney General should be able to do it. And there's no.
They did go after Donald Trump because Joe Biden didn't want to do it.
He had a special prosecutor. He had
But at the order.
But then why is it wrong?
Like, I don't even know. Like, what is happening? How do you hear these people? In my head, that's what that lady sounds like. She's like, no nonsense, like all nonsense. No sensibilities. I know you're going to say something dumb, I know you're going to say probably the most foolish thing when you say by your logic, or what you're saying is, if you're going to restate what I said to me, I know you didn't get it. Especially that lady. It's like, look, I can assess from sitting here looking at CNN that Scott Jennings is infinitely smarter than you are. His raw IQ, his raw horsepower is higher than you are capable to grasp. Sorry, lady. That's really clear from all of us watching. What you're saying is, by your logic, all of those are little prefaces to I'm about to have a really bad take where I try to like cram the square peg, the pillar that you have just stated, and I'm going to try to put it into a narrow round hole that it will not fit in. You might as well just announce I'm forking retarded. Let's go to the fork in just 1 second. Before we do that, let's go over to the folks talking about forks. We could talk about eating. If you cannot eat, if you do not have food, you may be a little bit more panicky than otherwise, and you might want to get yourself squared away because you just don't know what's coming down the pike. These guys are not done fighting yet. So let's thank our friends over at My Patriot Supply. The website to find their products is preparelikekyle.com. It's very easy. You need no promo code. Preparelikekyle.com. We're all feeling pretty good about where the country's headed. I'm feeling awesome this morning, as you guys can tell. Doesn't mean that I don't wake up with a little bit of concern. I'm constantly that pessimist. I think that when we let our guard down, that's when bad things begin to happen. So I'm always prepared for emergencies, no matter how good or comfortable I am right now. And the only brand that we rely on for security and for safety in emergency is My Patriot Supply. We do have a cabinet full of it. We actually have a closet full of it, is probably more accurate. When you need an emergency food kit, if you need solar generators, if you need water, filtration, and treatment, they're the best in the business. And right now you can get their 4-week emergency food kit. It's an entry-level option, $50 off at preparelikekyle.com. Again, the 4-week emergency food kit comes with all kinds of options, so you're not eating the same food every day. It's creamy Alfredo pasta. You can have banana chips as a snack. They've got all kinds of stuff. They've got oatmeals. I've got some stuff sitting behind me actually on the wall. The 4-week emergency food kit gives you options to make sure that you can survive a small emergency, 30 days. You can get it in as little as 1 day because they have warehouses all over the country. Preparelikekyle.com is the website. Again, $50 off, preparelikekyle.com. Do not wait for the emergencies to happen. They could happen at any moment. Should we do the fork? God, I'm so excited about the fork story. I can't help it. Here we go. Ready? The fork. Oh, yesterday, I got this email. I got links to this email, which is on OPM's website. It's OPM for the Office of Personnel Management.gov/fork. Now, I sort of had an instinct that something like this might be coming, but this is way better than I would have guessed. Way better. The fun thing about this particular email, which is actually entitled The Fork, I kid you not. Like, they actually called it a fork in the road. It's at the top. What you're seeing on the bottom of the screen is actually the top of the webpage when you land there. It was sent out to all federal employees. Now, here's how I knew this was coming. I just teased it out. I'll get into the pillars in a second. I knew it was coming because I keep track of these Reddit forums where a bunch of federal employees go to cry and whine. And that's a real thing. They go on Reddit, which is very, mixture of like, I guess the racist kids have all kind of left it because they've all been censored out. But it used to be like racist threads of whatever, and then crying people that droop together. There's also like some pretty useful forums over there. Like I can find out how, like National Firearms Association or National Firearms Act, you could find out like how fast the cans are getting cleared and if you're going to get your SBR back fast or whatever. This particular forum is a bunch of whining OPM losers who are whining about a server getting introduced. There's actually an entire web page. There's actually a lawsuit that is pending right now. I wonder if I added the lawsuit. I don't think I did. There's a lawsuit that is pending. They sued in the District of Columbia, the District of Columbia, in order to stop the sharing of their government emails under the Privacy Act. It's this very nonsensical thing. These are the exact same people that celebrated Hillary Clinton, who brought in all of the classified emails into a private server in her own home. These people in the Trump administration, the executive, again, this is going back to executive function. They came in and said, we represent the executive. We are part of Donald Trump's plan. We are going to bring a server into the Office of Personnel Management and plug it into your system. And we want access to send an email, have the ability to send an email to every person in the federal government who are executive employees. There's only a few people that are not. They work for Congress, like the Capitol Police. They're function of Congress. Almost every single thing that we refer to as the government falls under the executive. And so the executive branch wanted to be able to reach out to all of their employees. Like if you worked at a company and got an employee all email, the way I used to get the FBI all listserv. These are not crazy capabilities. The crying happened because they said, oh my God, this has never been the case before. Usually what happens is regular government inefficiency. We did a whole episode on the speed of government the other day when I was in Vegas, so feel free to reference that. But the speed of government is slow. It's I will hand it to you, and you will hand it to you, and you will hand it to you, and we will play telephone all the way down the line so all of these useless people in the middle can feel like they have a functionality. They can add their name to it and their own little taste to it. You don't have any right to privacy when you work for the federal government, not in your government emails. That's why the absurdity of like Peter Strzok and Lisa Page getting $1 million settlement from the DOJ, that's crazy because they didn't use their personal devices. You don't have privacy on something that is not owned by you. It's owned by the people, by the American people. When I carried a firearm for the FBI, it was the American people's firearm. My credentials were issued, yes, by the FBI director, yes, because of the authorities given by the Attorney General, yes, going up to the President of the United States, but who paid for them? The American people. That's what these people don't understand. It's funded by the American people. But you don't work for the American people. You work for the boss. The boss is the person that's elected by the American people to get up there, as it stands. Jeez Louise. So anyway, they're all upset because they said if they had the ability to send out an email to every federal employee, the first thing they would do is a RIF. A RIF is a reduction in force. If you're in the military, you've seen this. Sometimes they go and RIF all the lieutenants. They're like, we paid for all your education, but get out. We don't need any more of you. We need more tranny pilots. We don't need whatever you are. And so they do it. Okay? Very simple. The fork. This is what went out. And I got this, by the way, before people started hitting me up. They're like, oh my God, I got this email. I'm like, yeah, dude, I already got it. Like, I'm ahead of you. My friends in the FBI, I'm ahead of you. I got it before you did. I don't know why. The fork in the road refers to this is the best thing that has ever been done in government in the last 15 years, 16 years. Deferred resignation email to federal employees dated 28 January 2025. I'm going to read you the headline. I'm sorry, the opening paragraph. During the first week of his administration, President Trump issued a number of directives concerning the federal workforce. Among those directives, the president required that employees return to in-person work, that they restore accountability for employees who have policymaking authority. They've restored accountability to senior career executives, also known as SES, and they've reformed the federal hiring process to focus on merit. As a result of the above orders, the reform of the federal workforce will be significant. You can actually feel the hearts dropping in all of the useless employees. The reformed federal workforce will be built around 4 pillars, and they are on the screen for you right now. If you are listening, I will read you the 4 pillars. Pillars. They're not pillows. These things are hard. Number 1. Return to the office. Number 2, performance culture. Number 3, a more streamlined and flexible workforce. This is the opposite of federal government. This is a terrifying document. It's forking terrifying. Enhanced standards of conduct is the last one. The federal workforce should be reliable, loyal, trustworthy, strive for excellence in their daily work, subject to enhanced standards of suitability and conduct. As we move forward, employees who engage in unlawful behavior and misconduct will be prioritized for appropriate investigation and discipline. Here's where the fork comes in. When I used to be in the Air Force, especially going through the pararescue indoc, which is, by the way, that's what's over my shoulder. Some of you guys always ask me, like, hey, what's over your shoulder? That's a fin that I had from indoc. It's a snorkel that I used to breathe through with a buddy. And those are the goggles that I had from dive school, which I went to in Panama City. My dive bubble's sitting on there as well. When I went through there, they would always give us these deals. They would give you this little moment where they would say, hey, we've been kicking your butts. I know you guys are suffering right now. You're getting your butts handed to you. We're going to offer you the wrench. Here is a difficult choice that you can try to engage in, a maximum effort. Carry the rigid hull inflatable boat around the goalpost down there and back in under 2 minutes. And if you can do it, you guys can take a breather. If you don't do it, you owe me 1,000 push-ups as a team, individually. So everybody knocks out 1,000. So you know you're going to get punished. You're going to basically either go, hey, do I want to spend 2 minutes of hell and maximum effort to be able to roll this thing back? Or you want to just take the suffering in the long haul. Here's the thing that they offered. Upon review of this email, this is the options. Select reply to this email. You must reply from your government account, and it has to be either a .gov or a .mil. It cannot be the same. Sorry, an account reply from anything other than .gov or .mil will not be accepted. Simply type the word resign into the body of this email and hit send. Guys, this is the fork. So what are they offering? If you choose, okay, so here it is. The pillars are outlined and pursuant to the applicable law, consistent with your agency's policies, and to the extent permitted under relevant collective bargaining agreements. So we're not going to break any laws, but here's the deal. If you choose to remain in your current position, we thank you for your renewed focus on serving the American people to the best of your abilities, and we look forward to working with you. It's a very nice way of saying that. At this time, we cannot give you full assurance regarding the certainty of your position or your agency. But should your position be eliminated, you'll be treated with dignity and you'll be afforded the protections in place for such positions as yours. If you choose not to continue in your role, the federal workforce will in fact say thank you for your service to the country, and you'll be provided with a dignified and fair departure from the federal government utilizing a deferred resignation program that is effective and must be determined. You must be opted in by February the 6th. And if you resign under this program, you will retain all pay and benefits, regardless of your daily workload. In other words, we don't need you to work. We're just going to pay you. It's a severance package, a working severance, and you will be paid until the end of the fiscal year 2025. It doesn't say that, but that's what it is, September the 30th. Now, why September the 30th? A lot of people are like, oh my God, why? Well, listen, when Congress makes the budget, again, they lay out what the spending is. It's already baked into the cake. The federal agencies are going to bake in how much they're going to spend on their employee costs, their workforce. And those are already worked into the budget. What it says here, here's the fork. Whichever path you choose, we thank you for your service to the United States of America. It's very polite. Thank you so much. The fiscal year ends September the 30th. So here's the option. You can either self-assess that my job in the federal government is incredibly important and it will not be eliminated, in which case I'm going to take the gamble. It's not really a gamble if you understand what your job is. If you know that your work is necessary, then you're going to stick around and you're going to be fine. And you're going to do a great job and you're going to take on those 4 pillars of excellence. You're going to go towards meritocracy and standards of conduct. You're going to do what is asked of you as a federal employee working on behalf of the American people, but directly reporting to this long chain that goes up to the United States president. Or you're going to realize, oh dear, I'm allowed to work from home. I have not been doing very much work. You're going to see like this paralegal I saw on DOJ the other day who runs a queer bridal expose or something like that. You're going to go like, oh my goodness, I am a non-essential employee. Whenever they start cutting and they have these like essential versus non-essential jobs, when they have that moment when they say, if you have an essential job, even though you're not getting paid, you still have to go to work. Like my old job as an FBI agent, I had to show up for work. The American people didn't my job was contingent on pay or not pay. It was irrelevant. I always got back paid. But if you got to stay home when the back pay was being issued, if you didn't have to show up because we didn't need you, you're non-essential. And if you're non-essential, you better make that choice on the fork. You better choose the resignation, because otherwise you're going to find on February the 7th, you no longer get that long paid severance for the full year. How many people get 8 months of working severance where they can go and figure out at low level garbage government employee jobs? The answer is none. So they've just given them a decision for all their chips where they have to evaluate, am I actually serving the American people? What an incredible option. It's the same thing that happened at Twitter. You can opt in or you can wait to find out. The time limit is very clear. You have till February the 6th. And after that time, we're going to make a decision for you. And hopefully you chose correctly. Oh, I like it so much. It's so good. Here it is. CBS. There's a reason why I want to go to CBS right now, because they were breathlessly covering a new scandal about Kash Patel. The administration is offering deferred resignation to government workers unwilling to return to the office. If you don't want to come back in, you don't have to. It will be permanent, but we're going to pay you out for 8 more months. America, this is a great deal. Imagine, we talked about it on this program before. Imagine if we could make that deal with Congress people. It's like, we're not going to elect a speaker. We're not going to have you pass any laws. You're not going to spend any more of our money, and we're willing to eat the salary of all your staff and the Congress people. That would be a salary bite of like $40-something million. $40 million for us not to spend trillions. It'd be fine. The percentage of useless workers in the federal government is so high. Having worked in Washington, D.C. during these government shutdowns, during the sequesters and all this kind of stuff, they all got paid anyway, folks. But we actually got stuff done. You know why? Because I didn't have to sit in traffic for an hour and a half to get into Washington, D.C. I just drove straight in. It took me 24 minutes. I got to work. There was nobody in the way. There were none of that yappy people that are like secretaries that don't do anything. There's a lot of people that are going to take this offer. Now, if your job is of value and you know that you provide a service to the American people in a federal employee job and you're listening to my ears, do not give up. Stick around, please. You're the people that are not supposed to be affected by this. But those that don't get it, they're going to get bitten hard by the fork. They're going to get forked. I can't help it. It's so fun. In the meantime, you're going to have all this other craziness. So let me keep going forward. The senator from Connecticut, Chris Murphy, he's very upset about this because they also talked about stopping federal funding for other things, right? Get forked, dude. You don't get it. They're not tracking. And I'm totally fine with leftists not understanding what is happening right now. In general, Americans will cheer for people in the federal government that do not provide a service. Think about calling the IRS and getting any value out of it. Have you ever called the Social Security Administration? They do terrible things with your money. They waste it frequently, and they do not feel like they serve you. Talk to most federal employees. They do not feel like they are of service to the American people. Their job exists for the sake of the job. That is what a self-licking ice cream cone is. That's why it is a regular analogy around the Beltway if you work in the D.C. area. And I had that misfortune for half a decade. Here's Chris Murphy, not on board. He's got a place to air his grievances, and his place to air it is on CNN, and it's with Caitlin Collins. We're going to do more Caitlin Collins today. Let's enjoy this. Here we go.
Constitutional. It is absolutely clear, based upon prior Supreme Court decisions, that the president cannot unilaterally suspend government programs in order to impose his own priorities and his own policy on top of what was passed by Congress. To me, this is inherently corrupt. What Trump is trying to do is seize control of government spending so that he can send money to his friends and to his loyalists, and he can punish states, for instance, like Connecticut, that are represented by his political opponents. Obviously.
Now, can we just talk for a second about North Carolina? Because we saw Biden do the same thing. Did they not punish the people in North Carolina that were hit by a hurricane? There was no FEMA money, remember? And where did they send the money? To their friends who were running nonprofits, NGOs, that were taking care of these illegals. Sorry, bro. It's been good for you for a long time. You're now reaping the whirlwind. Here is Dan Goldman, who is one of the most detestable and wealthiest members of Congress. He is the heir to the Levi Strauss fortune. He's worth a ton of money. He tried to own my buddy Garrett O'Boyle and got completely devastated intellectually because he's not smart. Here he is talking to Anderson Cooper, another super wealthy guy. He's what, a Vanderbilt? Like he's from a robber baron family? These are two uber wealthy men talking about the plight of shutting down government spending. Again, it is their God. There's no question about it in my mind. Listen to the way they talk about it.
What really happened here, Anderson, is that they planned to stop all funding and that there was enough of an outrage that they released supplemental guidance today trying to roll this back. But what was clear is they shut down all of the money right away, and that was their plan. And
so their plan was, in fact, their plan. It sounds like the way that my 4-year-old tries to tell me stories when they actually define like that recursive definition where you refer to the word in the definition of the word, kind of like a woman is anybody who feels like they're a woman, right? Their plan was that they enacted this, and it was the plan. What a dummy. They're just getting owned left and right. And why are they getting owned? Because they're stupid. And we're seeing smarter people all over the place stepping up. This is the White House press secretary giving a little take on what actually happened, which was not what they just said. It's real straightforward.
This is not a blanket pause on federal assistance and grant programs from the Trump administration. Individual assistance, that includes, I'm not naming everything that's included, but just to give you a few examples, Social Security benefits, Medicare benefits, food stamps, welfare benefits, assistance that is going directly to individuals will not be impacted by this pause. As it says right here in the memo, which I have, and I'd encourage all of you to read it, it says the American people elected President Trump to be the president of the United States and gave him a mandate to increase the impact of every federal dollar. This memo requires federal agencies to identify and review all federal financial assistance programs and supporting activities consistent with the president's policies and requirements.
It's not really that hard. It's actually in the memo. It turns out they actually wrote what they're going to do, and they wrote it really politely. That doesn't stop them from trying to say, hey, Stephen Miller, how long will this be? He's like, let me just own you, because if you read the memo, then you wouldn't be asking me dumb questions. Did they not teach you this in journalism school? Apparently not. Here's Stephen Miller walking out after that briefing, where they covered all the questions, where it was easily discussed. And he's like, look, we just had a briefing about this. You're going to ask me another question about this? This is not a gotcha. We're now dealing with people that are smart enough to have a memory that's more than like 90 seconds. It's not a goldfish regime.
Before we get started, I'm only going to do 5 minutes because we had a whole press briefing with Caroline and I don't want to.
Can you just give us a sense, how long is this temporary pause on federal funding? How long is this pause going to last?
Well, the terms of the executive order is 90 days, but it's important to understand that it's a review process to say that there's for discretionary spending that's not directed by Congress or required by law. So this would be, for example, something like a contract to a non-governmental organization to teach, say, critical race theory.
You know, like the things that we think are not really the thing the government should be doing in the first place. That's what's going on here. Does it stop them from losing their minds? No. It's exactly what they're going to do. Here's another one. Again, the God-given sex thing apparently really triggered them. Check this out. Donald Trump signs an executive order to restrict transgender care access to people under 19. The other one is him apparently getting rid of, I'm just going to throw a couple headlines because they're fun. The Pentagon, read that peak headset because he just got confirmed, removes General Milley's security detail and revoked his clearance because he was a piece of garbage. Because the guy actually openly stated, like, yeah, I went out there and resisted the commander-in-chief that I was supposed to report to. And I just didn't do what I was supposed to do. It's like, okay, bro. They're doing a review and they are talking about demoting him retroactively. That's a possibility. They can go basically say his service after a certain point was no longer honorable. And so they can actually backstep it. The mechanism of this, if you guys want to follow it, Rob Green, and he's out on Twitter at RobGreen1010, friend of ours, friend of the show. He's been out there covering this pretty well, trying to get military accountability. It's really straightforward stuff, but it's like, hey, how about that? Speaking of transgender stuff, I want to kind of hit this one because God forbid we don't have people that don't know what to do with their genitals. This is a fantastic, fun clip. Again, we had a little bit of Caitlin Collins earlier. She's been going head to head with people. She's not very good. She is very smug. She's very smug when she stood up with Donald Trump and she got owned. She tries her best. Here she is sitting with a man dressed up like a woman that looks suspiciously like her. I've had a lot of people say, oh, you know, she's transgender. And I'm like, nah, I don't think so. And I don't think so. I really don't. But like, it's not a real great look to have a dude named Emily sitting next to you who looks like kind of shockingly like you. He's wearing your woman face. Caitlin Collins, what are you doing? This is a naval pilot who should have probably never been allowed to do that based on the fact that we're talking about someone who is clearly mentally ill. The voice, if you're listening, is incongruous with the look. This looks like a 50-year-old Caitlin Collins. Wouldn't you feel terrible that this person wouldn't get a chance to serve? Look at all the great things they did. I want you to listen to the service, okay? The characterization of this man about his own service. Not once does he talk about serving the American people. Not once does he talk about the mission. He talks about himself because transgender people are toxically and malignantly narcissistic. You can always tell. That's the only way that they work. And this man proves it right now. Listen.
This order that came out, and we finally got to read the text of it this morning. You have almost 2 decades in your naval career. What is your view of this?
Well, it hit me kind of hard. You know, I've dedicated about 19 and a half years of service. It was my dream to join and fly for the Navy since I was little. I did the 2 tours in Iraq and Afghanistan, 60 combat missions. I got a lot of value at it and a lot of self-identity out of it. Later, I went on to be a test pilot and then the meritorious promotions. I have been at the pinnacle of naval aviation. I think I'm proof standing here that, you know, we are qualified to serve.
And when you see this and the language of it, I was reading through this because the congressman and I were kind of going back and forth on this last night, and it says that, quote, an adoption of a gender identity inconsistent with an individual's sex conflicts with a soldier's commitment to an honorable, truthful, and disciplined lifestyle, even in one's personal life. What is it like for you to hear those words?
First off, all I want to do is keep serving. You know, I've done that almost 20 years. I want to keep going. I have no desire to get out. And the feedback that I've had from prior to transition to after is that it's made me actually a better leader, able to connect with my people more and in a more authentic way.
Nope. No to all of that. That's all BS. What the fork are you talking about, dude? I don't believe you. Neither do you. Nobody believes you. You're an actor. You're an actor as a man pretending to be a woman. And it's nauseating. And the American people reject it. Out of hand. Nobody thinks that. No one thinks that you're a better leader because you put on a dress and you grew your hair out long. Screw off. I cannot be nauseated enough by this. I just want to keep on serving, and I served all these things, and I did all these kind of things. Just listen to the language. It's pathological narcissism. It's malignant. It is disgusting, and it is not what service is about. You want to talk to somebody who understands what their job is? Listen to somebody who's a legit, understands they're part of a team. It's like, our team did this, and we did this, and we did this. We accomplished the following missions, and we were only able to do it because we had refuelers, and we had maintainers, and we had armors, and we had, weapons officers, and we had electronic warfare officers that were doing targeting, and we had ground JTACs, and we did all of it. That's what service looks like. That we, as part of a team, went out there and helped the people, we Americans. It's not happening there. I did this, and I did this, and I want to just keep serving, and I want to just keep doing this job because I want to do it. Sounds like Merrick Garland, who doesn't seem to be transgender, but sounds just like the transgender men. It's like a little bit of testosterone didn't hit your vocal cords. You got estrogen instead, and you ended up sounding like kind of a whiny, obnoxious female dressed up like you're a dude dressed up like a female. Very awful. It's fun watching all of this stuff. I want to do the whistleblower allegation before we run out of time, because it's just like the one thing that needs to be talked about. Yesterday, the breaking news from 5 years ago, by the way. It's breaking today because of 5 years ago. I need you to understand how old the story is. It goes back to October of 2020 when Donald Trump was in the first time. This has Vindman vibes all over it. This is Alexander Vindman. This is a person who is not in a position to make the authority or decision saying, I have a problem with a policy decision that had nothing to do with my actual scope of office. How do I know that? Because Kash Patel didn't work for the FBI. This is the story. An FBI insider. Read that analyst. Read that hard leftist. Why do I say that? Because I know people inside the hostage recovery fusion cell, and they're leftists, and they're borderline autistic. And they don't get it. And they think that their job is more important than it is. Do you know whose job is important in a hostage rescue? The operators that go grab them. The intel people that give them the maps. Nobody gives a rat's ass if Kash Patel gets out there and does a press conference to a place that no one is going to hear it. You think the people in Yemen that are holding on to hostages are watching like a press conference that is given in a print journal called the Wall Street Journal? You gave a talk to a reporter that won't go to print for days because they're going to fact check it. And then meanwhile, the hostages are being flown back in. By the way, the result of this hostage rescue was the hostages were rescued. So your point is moot. It's completely irrelevant. It doesn't stop them from talking about it. I've actually got the interview, which is actually borderline hilarious. This is whatever the guy's is, major retard. And the guy's name is Daniel Kleinman, I want to say. I hit him up yesterday on Twitter because he posted the story. And I said, hey, Daniel, it's really interesting that you CBS, I did the search, 0 references to FBI whistleblowers in the last 4 years while Biden was in office. Suddenly, somebody's gone after and is serving their leftist masters, and they're really interested in reporting this fake story. This is not a whistleblower activity under 18 U.S.C. 2302, which is the statute. There's no violation of policy, rule, or law. It is not a policy that the FBI gets to tell the senior director of counterterrorism at the National Security Council, which was Kash's job. The FBI analyst doesn't know what that guy's policy or rules are. It's nonsensical. Here is what it looked like. Okay, I'm just going to play you the clip, and I'm going to let them kind of talk about it.
And this publicity is an overt signal they plan to bring it up during the hearing. CBS News investigative reporter Dan Kleitman joins us now. Dan, outline the questions raised about judgment and protocol.
Well, look, in this particular case that this whistleblower has brought forward, it involves a hostage deal in Yemen in mid-October 2002, where 2 Americans and then the remains of a 3rd American were going to be exchanged for 200 Houthi fighters. The problem is Kash Patel, according to the letter, according to what this whistleblower says, kind of
I'm going to pause it for a second. They unironically refer to this person as a whistleblower when we're talking about words like protocol, which are not mentioned in the statute. Remember, Garrett O'Boyle made credible allegations of violations of rule, policy, or law. That's what you must do. I came forward and said that in possible violation of 18 U.S.C. 1001, and I've got the other statutes here too, which are perjuries. Those are 1621 and 1623 under 18 U.S.C. Those are potential felony violations, false statements while under oath in front of a hearing that could be construed as perjury in a legislative, administrative, or judicial body. Like, there's real definitions of what whistleblower means. It's the reason why I do this podcast today. This guy does not know what that is, and he's going to keep talking about it. They're going to, I'm swear to God, this person is not in a position to know whether or not a senior official in another department has a policy that might have been violated. They can come forward in good belief, but isn't it interesting that they're only going to call people whistleblowers? For 4 years, we haven't heard anything from these clowns.
Jumped the gun. He called the Wall Street Journal before it was confirmed that these American hostages were in U.S. custody or in safely with Americans, and before his family or their family was notified. And that is a serious breach of protocol. It risks, something going terribly wrong.
Oh, terribly
and of course
wrong.
Is not
It's a serious breach of protocol.
Respectful for the family. So.
Oh, it was disrespectful to the families. None of those things are defined by statute, by the way, if you're in the FBI. This is an unauthorized leak. Now, you can go under, I think it's 5 U.S.C. 7211. You can go and talk to a member of Congress, knock yourself out. But you're not a whistleblower in that case. You're just someone who's petitioning Congress. You're allowed to do that. This is absurd. It's just stupid. And it's wrong. It doesn't weigh in at all on the accuracy. I'm going to show you another win just because, like I say, I don't think this is going to derail Cash's. I don't think it's going to derail Cash's attempts to be confirmed. That happens tomorrow, by the way. I'm debating whether or not we do a real podcast or whether we just live stream the whole thing and just poke fun at these idiots who are going to cry about that. That's their last minute moment. They're going to try to deal with Kash Patel, RFK, Tulsi Gabbard. I think all of them probably get through because Pete Hegseth got through and they threw everything they had about him. They were like, he's a sexual predator. He's a philanderer and a drunk. And I'm like, so he's like basically like a light version of Hunter Biden. You guys seem to think he was awesome too. We don't take you seriously. Even people on the political left are like, yeah, they blew their wad. They just don't have the ability to do it. What I'm leaning towards for the most part, and I'll put it out on social medias if you guys want to follow us, you can do so over at kyleseraphin.com, which is where our locals is. I'll definitely interact with you guys on that. But the odds are is that we'll probably just not live stream the opening of it. We'll figure it out. I'm thinking through the logistics of it. I do like doing a regular podcast. I guess we could just like post it all up there if people want to hear the hearing. You're not going to hear it any other way. You're not going to listen to it. But it's also full of a lot of shenanigans and bullshit. So it's hard to listen to that. Let's talk about a couple things that are not as we rock into the end here. Sort of this idea that we're going to get rid of people that don't need to be there, that the government will stay out of your business. It's very libertarian. One of the big causes that libertarians were pushing was the freedom, the pardoning, or the commutation of the sentence of Ross Ulbright. If you guys don't know, Ross was the guy who created Silk Road, which was a marketplace for a bunch of illegal things. It was kind of like the ultimate, if you will, the ultimate libertarian space. People were selling children. They were selling drugs. They were selling things that are not, authorized by the government. They were selling raw milk or whatever, like untreated cattle. Like, I don't know. They were doing all kinds of wild stuff. And in theory, he shouldn't have been held accountable. This is the libertarian argument. He shouldn't have been accountable for other people's actions and the government just stay out of it because it's free commerce. Yeah and no. He served a lot of time in prison. He definitely deserved to come out at this point in the same way that the J6ers do. So I'm pleased to see this is yet another one of those things. But what you won't see is libertarians go back and say, hey, I was wrong. I didn't know. Donald Trump is doing an awesome job. That just didn't happen. So the question is are you responsible for the actions of other people? And I don't think Ross was necessarily responsible for the actions of other people. And he obviously paid a pretty heavy price for creating this technology and allowing to it. They said that he knew that it was happening. Whether that's true or not is another animal. Very difficult to kind of justify. Either way, we see people doing all kinds of awful things regularly and not being held to account in the same way that he was. So this was always kind of politically motivated. What they always say is that contraband is the government's property. And the government doesn't like anyone getting in the way of what they do and taking their property. So maybe that's the story. You guys can see this on Facebook Marketplace today. Like they're selling, I see women selling a dress for like $10,000 and it's like a $50 Walmart dress. They're selling sex. They're selling something else. I don't know what they're doing. All kinds of weird stuff like that. I had other things I wanted to get to. Let's just kind of end with a little fun thing. The talking points are getting devalued. They're getting debunked and they're getting destroyed. They're getting forked in real time. Let's just do a little moment of CNN's Jake Tapper getting owned. I played a little bit of Stephen Miller. It's nice to see smart people destroying dumb people who are running off with leftist talking points. This is probably a microcosm today of the attitude most of us are feeling on this Wednesday. You ready? Here is Stephen Miller just eating the lunch of Jake Tapper on live television.
A question because one of the reasons that President Trump got elected, according to President Trump in an interview, I think it was with Kristen Welker of NBC, was because of grocery prices. Not the only reason, but a reason, high prices, inflation, especially at the grocery. The Department of Agriculture says that between 2020 and 2022, 42% of crop workers were undocumented immigrants. And in many cases, as you know, these migrants do jobs many Americans do not want to do. So how does President Trump make sure that the effort to deport people who are not in this country legally doesn't end up hurting Americans who want safe borders, absolutely, but also don't want to see even more higher prices in groceries?
Well, I mean, I'm sure it's not your position, Jake. You're just asking the question, that we should supply America's food with exploitative illegal alien labor. I obviously don't think that's what you're implying. Only 1% of alien workers in the entire country work in agriculture. The top destination for illegal aliens are large cities like New York, like Los Angeles, and small industrial towns, of course, all across the heartland, as we've seen with the Biden floods. None of those illegal aliens are doing farm work. Those 30,000 illegal aliens that Joe Biden dumped into Springfield.
I'm talking about the ones that are.
But I'm explaining this. It's important to understand.
No, you're kind of changing the subject. I mean, I'm talking about the ones.
I will give me 30 minutes. I'll go as deep as you want on this. I'm explaining to you and your audience.
I don't have I'm talking about the ones that work in the agriculture industry.
I'm
you
explaining
can come back
to you
and we can talk about the ones in the cities. I swear.
I'll do the whole answer. The illegal aliens that Joe Biden brought into our country are not full stop doing farm work. They are not. The illegal aliens he brought in from Venezuela, from Haiti, from Nicaragua, they are not doing farm work. They are in our cities collecting welfare. As for the farmers, there is a guest worker program that President Trump supports. Over time as well, we will transition into automation, so we'll never have to have this conversation ever again. But there's no universe in which this nation is going to allow the previous president to flood our nation with millions and millions of illegal aliens who just get to stay here. And we are especially not going to allow a subset of those illegal aliens to rape and murder our citizens. So we are going to unapologetically enforce our immigration laws. And as I'm sure you will celebrate, we are going to unleash the power and might of the U.S. government to eradicate the presence of transnational threats on our soil.
So,
gotcha. I'm gonna start stacking my papers whenever I'm uncomfortable. You see that? Like Jake Tapper, he's just tapping away, tapping. He was like, what the fork just happened to me? I just got destroyed on my own show. Folks, if you're seeing your name on the screen, that's because you are in our live chat. If you are in our live chat, we really appreciate you joining us early in the morning in some places and later in the morning on the East Coast. It's 0930 when we go live, and you can see us. We've got the folks over on X. We've got the folks on YouTube. We've got the folks over on Rumble. All of you folks jumping in. I can't combine the chats, but we do get to see you all there, and we want to appreciate you right now. Let me give you one last little moment, because what did Jack Tapper just say? Number one, there's your last little taste. 869 detainers lodged. That's the pipeline we talked about the other day, and 969 arrests made by ICE. They're putting it out daily. If you guys want to follow that account, which I am, I'll probably punch it up every day, at least for a little while, because it's amusing to me. Lastly, those people, those illegal aliens that were coming here and having a real hard time, arrested under Biden, deported under Trump, Guatemalans sent back and welcomed with flippin' cookies. What the fork is going on here? That lady does not need to eat any more cookies. This was a CNN article that made me laugh the other day, and I wanted to share it with you. They're being welcomed by their home country. Really? You know what that tells me? Because we were told that all of these people were refugees, that they were there, that they were asylum seekers because their government wanted to kill them, and then people gave them flippin' cookies when they came home? Sounds delicious. It sounds like you were always lying and trying to take advantage of my country. So get the fork out. I do not need you. Okay, you guys want to hear where we're at right now? This is the theme song of my heart right now. This is from Iron Maiden. That's right. I'm a Maiden fan. This song made radio airplay in 1983. It is based on the 1854 poem, The Charge of the Light Brigade, written by Lord Tennyson. It is a fantastic song, and it is a reason why I think that the kids are going to be okay. These are two 10-year-old girls or 8-year-old girls. I can't tell how old they are, but they look like very young, and they are shredding. So get ready. This is The Trooper. Seriously, one of my favorite pumped-up hype songs, and I'm hyped up right now, so I'm going to play it for you. beating the drums like it owes her money. Oh, man, it's so good. Anyway, fantastic. The kids are going to be okay if we can just get them to play a little bit of Maiden. Have a great day. I hope you guys have a great Wednesday. We'll make the decision on what we're going to do with the live stream of the hearing. It'll probably be Steve Friend live streaming it, and I'll probably jump in after the podcast. That is it. God bless all of you. See you again. Have a fantastic day. Choose the right side of the fork if you're in the government. You know who you are. All right. Catch you tomorrow.
Thanks for listening to the Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram @Kyle Seraphin.